Welcome to This Week in Pulling, the show that brings you all the action from the world of tractor and truck pulling. I'm Dan Mayer, joined by Jeremy and Miles Krieger, and each week we'll dive into the latest highlights, breaking news, and behind-the-scenes stories from the sport we all love. From upcoming events, standout performances, and the rich history that shaped pulling into what it is today, we've got you covered. So buckle up, This Week in Pulling starts now.
Welcome back to This Week in Pulling, episode 14. Dan Mayer joined by Miles Krieger, and there he is. Jeremy Krieger is back from his trip across the big pond.
The proverbial world. Thank you, gentlemen. It's great to be back. Hello again, everybody. I was off for the last couple of weeks visiting a good friend of the family in Hong Kong. So took my son, Bradley, for an epic graduation trip. We went to Hong Kong for about a week or so. The highlight for me, though, had to have been watching Hutch at 7:30 in the morning Saturday local time while you guys were, in Minnesota Friday night, the night before. So being, 12 hours ahead over there, it was really cool to be in the hotel room at 7 o'clock in the morning watching pulling in the middle of Asia. So, and I think last time I checked, I asked Jason Schultz if anybody else was logged on from the Far East, and he said no, I was the only one. He knew it was me. So it was pretty neat to experience that. And what a trip we had. It was really, really fun. Great time. Made a lot of great memories, and a trip I'll never forget. Sorry I missed you guys, but I'm back now, and well, let's talk some pulling. Boy, what an epic weekend you guys had out there in the Field of Dreams.
First thing I got to ask you though is, did you introduce any fans in China to pulling over there while you were?
No. What I have found, Dan, is that the person we went to see, my good friend from high school, has been over there 18 years, but she speaks no Mandarin and no Cantonese. And you don't have to. Like, you can get along just fine without those native languages, but having the ability to introduce somebody to a sport that you can't pronounce in their native language is going to be pretty hard. So I just took a hard pass and decided I'd watch it myself in a little cafe in the hotel first, and then I had breakfast at a little cafe not far from the hotel, and continued to watch it over some coffee before we did a thing called hiking the Dragons back. There's a big 6-mile trail over some switchback mountains that's about 1,000 feet up in the air, and it was very grueling. And I kept joking with the crew that took us. I'm like, "Oh, you took the fat man out on a hike today. Good for you. Well done." And there were about 350 steps up just to get to the trailhead, and about 1,000 steps coming down. So you walk 6 miles plus 1,000 steps down. The payoff is the Trail of the Dragon's Back literally ends in the South China Sea. So you come down off of the mountain onto a beach and into the water. So it was quite a reward for somebody who nearly died several times. I won't tell you what my heart rate was. Let's just say I need to get in a lot better shape, and I'm glad my cardiologist wasn't along for the ride.
Oh, that's cool. That sounds like you got your steps in for the day, at least.
Absolutely. That there was about, I think I burned 1,500 calories on that 6 miles, and it was so bad. Like, my son, who's in good shape and is 18, he's like, we got back, we were done, and he said, "Dad, I got to take a nap." and he did. He took a great nap. But no, we had a great time, and it was really, really fun and great memories. But missed you guys and missed the pulling world, and I'm happy to be back. And wow, you guys had a great weekend up there in Farley, Iowa, and let's talk about it.
History making weekend this weekend, Farley, Iowa, and great crowds. Miles, I was kind of putting that together this afternoon. Is you talk about everything, from the sign, RJ and the family, to sled settings, to everything that they did, press conferences, it's unbelievable what they had done, what they put together in this past weekend.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think the kind of neat additions were the things that made the difference for me. The fact that you could absolutely cut the tension with a knife on Saturday night for the finals, and the folks in the preliminaries trying to get in. It was pretty tense. But from Saturday morning at noon, when we started with the number draw until the completion of that, that was a neat experience. The success of the Lucky Dogs and watching Lucky Dogs be called back in that would not have made it, and a guy like John Link take $10,000 home. He was a lucky dog.
The guy in the Superstock
Diesels,
he did great
on the four-wheel drive side, he was fourth and barely missed. And then, the other aspect that I thought was pretty awesome was the fact that RJ had solicited sponsorships for random number finishers as well. And somebody who may have finished 17th or 14th or whatever might get $2,000 out of that deal, which nobody's ever finished 17th in a tractor pull or 14th in a tractor pull and got $2,000. So, the interesting things about it is a guy that finished third until Saturday night, the guy that finished third took home the largest purse we had ever experienced in the sport of pulling, and he got third. So the other two guys took huge checks home, a $20,000 check and a $50,000 check. And we really didn't talk much about the 10 and the 20. All we talked about was the 50 for the most part. But the guy that got second and the guy that got third, or the lady that got second or the lady that got third, still took home a record check.
Absolutely. Now, Miles, I got to ask you, with this being the first, time you did sort of the live stream piece of it, what did you think of that? What did you think of the experience of live streaming in addition to being live PA there?
Well, for me, it didn't change anything on what we were trying to do per se. I worked collaboratively with Dan. Dan had the headset on and communication with what was coming and what was going. I will say if I had a hard time with anything, it was the fact that we couldn't hear Charles. And that made things a little bit of a challenge at times. I even talked over the top of him a couple of times because I had no idea that he was speaking. Right. But at the end of the day, I think we did our very best to try to put the show on that we could, bring some energy, enthusiasm, and excitement to the competitors that made the cut, and then ultimately tell that story. As you watched somebody like Dean Halicki, who in this sport has achieved pretty well everything you can, and then to see him stand down there trackside, just unable to control himself that final half an hour of the evening with his emotions, pretty unreal. A guy like Erik Stacey or Jared or Rob, they all seem to I guess I should say Rob, he didn't want to be up around it. He stayed back by his truck out in the pit area. You did not see him up trackside. Right. Erik, was with his small group of folks and standing next to Van Hazley, but he was by his truck back in the pit area as well, not trackside for much of it. Whereas Esden was at the big end of the track and literally stood there and watched every single tractor from him being hook number 4, I believe, to the completion, and watched every one of them come at him. So, you think about how you would react, how you would handle those moments of nerves, anxiety, whatever you want to call it. It was pretty interesting to watch that and see people who have just ice water in their veins, being nervous.
Absolutely. But I mean, again, unprecedented waters, $50,000.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that's never happened before. Like that's I think that would make anybody nervous. I mean, but just to be in the show, to me, to make it to Saturday night would be even worse than from a nerves perspective. Like getting through the prelims, I think would be torture. But then to actually be in the hunt for $50,000 on Saturday night, I can't imagine what that was like.
Well, that was something that you could really see, like for the qualifiers on Thursday and Friday. It was about 3:00 when they opened the scales up, 3 or 3:30, and that's when the game faces came on. I mean, and normally you'll see, at a pull, you can go up, at it, in the staging lanes and shoot the bull with anybody and joke around. There was no, it was game face on at that point. Before that, okay, go ahead and, talk to whatever and joke around. But it seemed like everybody was, they were serious, and it was, big time. That's one of the things you could really pick up was everybody had their game face on it. As soon as scaling started, And then, which was interesting too, because the scaling process, they had scales before and then they had scales, after you pulled. And the scales before and the hitch pad was basically on your honor system, which was very unique. Normally
they would tell you, hey, you roll across the scales with 2,070 pounds on your mini. Okay, you weigh 270 or 2,070 pounds. If you weigh 2,070 pounds when you roll across the scale after you've made your hook, you're out.
Yep. And, so it was, you were, and your hitch was too high, they'd get you, so
And
you
Jerry did. I mean, I think Jerry had a couple that he did have to have them roll back across the center scale or do some verifying just to make sure by rule we were intact. So, but I think all in all, I guess if I were just evaluating it from the, that was my first ever trip out there. The facility is top notch. The experience after the show, bringing people to the milestone and having discussions with the winners, letting them draw for lucky dogs, having some conversation and seeing kind of the enthusiasm that was there. That was all pretty awesome. And I think the track, we heard amazing things, just absolutely amazing things about the track and what people had to say about, how fair it was, but also how much power it was taking and how it had been packed together. And so kudos to Jim Miller and those folks, but also kudos to Jason Round and the folks that brought all the dirt in, because they hauled 60 loads in to put on top of the already there surface.
Gotcha.
Yeah, to take care of the wet spots that they had previously in that track. So they
pumped them, as RJ said.
Well, and I will say that it was impressive to me that the track continued to hold up. It seemed like, if you could be a late hook or late in the class, you still had just as good a shot to win as you did if you were, the first draw. Now, I understand some of the first hooks on the prelims, got in and held on, but it just seemed to me like over the course of the weekend, the consistency of the track held up and you had a really good chance to be, in the hunt late, middle, or in the beginning.
Which goes to show you too is the class size. You've heard like, the ideal class size is 12 to 15, or well, here this weekend we had 25, 22 on the finals days, and I think that was perfect. I mean, I think anything more than that, the 30 mark or whatever, I think you're going to get into where the track will start to change more. But that's always been a discussion is how many is too many, or for a class, and I think they hit it right on the money with 20 to right in that 20 to 25 range.
Yeah, and I would say, like, from the track's perspective, it seemed like if you challenged yourself and went outside of the realm of typical, you might typically find yourself a pass. Like Renee carved a path down the track with her mini that night. Cole Zajac, he made this diagonal shot that was significantly better than what most had done that night.
Right.
But then the guy who wins on Saturday night followed him very next in the order, went to the exact same path, and he was 30 feet back.
Yeah,
20 feet back. So I guess at the end of the day, like, Cole had that pass, he found the path, and it was there for one true pass and the perfect combination for him to be able to back out of it before he hit a concrete block.
Right.
Or you look at Jared Saturday night, and, I think that sort of center launch area was really where everybody was. And after Jared ran, Donnie came right back and he got second right after Jared did. So, we found the path that we were looking for there for some of those folks late in the class, or a guy like Nathan Faust, who, was, when he took the lead and went to the front, he was, following somebody that was right in front of him that had a pretty successful pass, but didn't take the lead. Jeremy was the lead, in the hunt at that point until Nathan went by him.
Yeah, and Nathan, he held on there for quite a while, and after it started to look like, okay, maybe this is going to work for him, and he's going to be a big winner here tonight. But that Miles, we had talked about it, 6 to go, I think it was, when we said there's 26 national champions in this two-wheel drive, 26 national championships between these 6 competitors that are coming up. Like, how can you, and they did it. They got it done.
Yeah, if you look down the list and you see Donnie and you see Petro and you see Whitey and you see Lisa and you see Jared, that's a pretty intimidating group of people that are all at the bottom of the class to come. So, I think the pro stock class was another one. I felt like, through the earlier parts of the week, a Thursday night and Friday night, Andrew Vorwald's pass was just impressive. And I quite honestly didn't think that after Brandon ran, I didn't think anybody'd go past him. I thought Brandon had the hook one. Then on Friday night, Jason made his pass and sort of down the right side of the track there with the yellow tractor, the industrial tractor. And I don't know that I thought that was a winning pass at that time, but it held up as a winning pass. And then Saturday night, it seemed like we were really kind of throwing those folks for a loop at times. I didn't really get a chance to recap or talk a lot with a lot of the pro stock tractor drivers, but it felt like, there was a lot of really, really amazing pro stock drivers who didn't make the pass they wanted to, let's say.
I talked to Danny Schmucker that night, afterward, and he had basically said the same thing that we had seen on track is, Dad was down there and they kind of put their arms up and like, we did the best we could. We found the best spot out there that we thought and, laid down the best run we could with what was left out there. And
scratch your head a little bit because you don't know what else you tried. Yeah. You went as far as you could. So,
but yeah, it was just one of those. The intensity was the part that I really, that made that event what it was. I think is just, everybody just makes their run, and then it's like, okay, is that going to be enough? Or and just watching everybody go to work down there and school, following everybody where they were going, and yeah, it was a different atmosphere, I guess you would say would be the best word to describe it.
Well, and was it something that was it a favorable atmosphere, or was the tension just?
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, it was a great atmosphere. I mean, you've got the vehicle wise, I think we had over 260 vehicles there, and which is a small problem that a lot of promoters would like to have is where do you put them all?
Right.
RJ's he's already thinking about where he can chop some corn down and put some more some haulers in there because the place was filled right up. I mean, everybody that just about everybody that was able to come made it there, and as far as a fan going to a pull, I mean, my gosh, you couldn't have seen a better mix of vehicles than were there. I mean, it was just from the limited pro class to the four-wheel, just a variety that you don't see really hardly anywhere.
Absolutely. Well, and where do you think they take it from here? Like, it was such a success. Like, how do you build on that in a positive way? Like, what more could be done?
I mean, as far as I don't know if you could do, everybody was kind of talking, it'd be great if you could have, 6, 7, 8 of these events a year. I don't know if you need to have, this big a payout. You know what I mean? I think you could, and we'll ask our guest when he comes on here. I'd like to ask that question. Like, where is that? Where would you be happy with? I mean, everybody's, not going to, 50,000 every pull. That would be a big chunk and obviously a big entry fee. But what would be the number that would be, like you'd like to pull for every week? Would it be
sort of middle of the road?
Would it be a $15,000, payout? I mean, what would be the, so that would be interesting to see what people are, what the pullers are thinking about that, because like you say, I don't think you can do 6, 7, 8 of them with doing that. So, with that kind of entry fee, but I don't know, we'll see what they think about it. But at this time here, we'll ask the man that was able to put it in the winner's circle, Mr. Erik Stacey. Erik, thanks for joining us here tonight.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I see that $50,000 check already behind you, pal. It's already in full-fledged presence.
He's got it prominently displayed.
Yeah. I was just waiting for that. I was just trying to fill that spot up. I've got more room too.
Had it open. Well, Erik, we were kind of talking about, the atmosphere here this weekend where everybody was, had their game face on, and how was it as far as a competitor with the, the pressure of trying to qualify, make it into the show, and then, obviously once you made it in the show, then you're running for 50 grand. I mean, it had to be a totally different mindset, I'm thinking.
I honestly felt more pressure Friday than I did Saturday.
Okay.
I mean, just because, your odds are probably lower because you've got twice as many vehicles, and any one of them could have been in that top 10. I mean, now mind you, like I expect that I'm going to be in the top 10. Like, I mean, I expect I'm going to be in the top 5 every night I go, but it don't always work out that way. And you just don't know if you're going to have some little hiccup, I mean, I could easily have been one of the guys that, had some trouble and had a little bit of a rough ride and had to bail out of it or something like that. And I mean, could have been packing up and going home Saturday, but, fortunately we got through it, and that allowed us to make some changes on it for Saturday because we kind of knew which direction we needed to be in. I mean, the bottom line is we hadn't pulled on a track like that for a good while, maybe ever. I mean, it didn't change. It was good from start to finish. Didn't matter what pull order he was in. The starting line, you could go from white line to white line. And I'm glad we had that day or that first session to do some trial and error on stuff. I mean, we went into Friday pretty conservative on the setup. I mean, the tune up, everything, like nothing was, crazy. And then Saturday we kind of dialed it in.
Well, let me pose this question at you, and I'll follow it up with another probably, but we've watched the diesel superstock truck class for as long as it's been around. I think all three of us have been supporters of it and enjoyed watching it. But I can't really ever put my finger on why it seems like some trucks just don't get it hooked. And some of the very best in this game this weekend struggled. And you think a lot of times, or for me, you would think that if it was a power track and a really good track, then that would make it easier for you to put your power to the track and you wouldn't have to harness it as much as you typically do. But this track in particular seemed like it was a finesse track like you would never imagine. How do you know? Like, how do we get this? Like, I guess I don't know how it seems like the most challenging tracks are the ones that are really the best ones.
They are 100%. I mean, from two different angles. The good tracks are challenging for the setup, of making sure that you have a smooth pass. The lesser tracks are a challenge on the setup and how you drive, just because you do have to finesse, a lesser track with grip on it that, you can't apply that power. I mean, there's some nights that you might not even go full throttle at all. But this one here, it would take whatever you would give it, as long as it would settle down. And I mean, we've all been having conversations with this, and it's a combination of everything. I mean, everything has evolved. The sleds have evolved, the vehicles have evolved, the tires have evolved, the power's evolved, the engines, everything. And every year, we're figuring out ways to put more of it to the ground while still staying at that 7,500 pound limit. And, sometimes it overcomes what you got underneath of you. And the setup is crucial. I mean, tire pressure, gearing, everything is in that. And, we're still working toward it. I mean, it's not foolproof yet. I mean, I like Shane the other night, like took off, was completely smooth, and that thing was just set in so hard, so quick. As soon as he started to, put power to it, like it come unglued. And, mine had a little bit of that in it, but I think maybe I had it freed up enough at that side of the track that it let me get through it. But like, you just, don't pull on stuff that often to know that that's what it's going to do. You understand what I'm saying? Like it just, if you'd have been anywhere else, like you wouldn't have seen any issue. I mean, they didn't have any issue at Hutchinson, none. And it was on the exact same sled, set up just like that. So that's just how good that track was.
I believed, like, and I even said this over the PA, I believed Jaden had driven through her rough bounce.
I did too.
And I thought she was through it and clear. Yep. And then all of a sudden, I mean, between her and who else, Dano, we were talking about?
We had the Deadpool.
Yes.
Yeah, Terry Biggs went for a real rough ride. Yeah.
Ooh, I felt bad for both he and Jaden because it just seemed like they just got rocked inside that cab.
Yeah. I mean, I felt the exact same thing last year. I mean, we've toured the country the last 3 or 4 years and had a very consistent program. We're usually in the top 3 about everywhere we go, and just play the consistency game, no matter if it's me or Lily driving. I got her in there last year and Rockwell last year, and I ran first on Friday or first on Thursday. Yeah, we pulled Thursday and Saturday, and she ran it Saturday and got second. So, we left there feeling really good. I mean, far as the whole package, heading into Bowling Green. And then go to Bowling Green, and nothing changed other than the dirt. And we looked like we hadn't pulled before. I mean, she struggled on Friday, and I struggled on Saturday, and it just did not accept the same setup. And trust me, we've learned. I mean, I put a lot of hours in watching a lot of video and studying a lot of data and stuff. I mean, that stuff's on my mind 24/7. And I really knew when this all came about that I could not go out to Farley with what we had at Bowling Green last year, because it was going to be at least as good as that, probably better, and it was way better. So at least I think we're headed in the right direction. But guys just got to start trying some things. I mean, that's what it all boils down to. You just can't do the same old thing if you got something that good under you.
Well, and Erik, from a driver's perspective, is there a way for you to anticipate the wheel hop? Like, it just seems to me like once it happens, and you either get out of it or you're in trouble. But like, is there a way for you to know it's coming, or do you just it just sort of is what it is?
No, not really. I mean, you don't, sometimes if you're way off, you'll know it as soon as you start loading the clutch. I mean, as soon as the tires make a revolution, you'll have it instantly. But like most cases here lately, it's been out there at 75 or 100 foot. And that's where the issue is kind of lied. And that's where we've been trying to work through that, because it's like you get a false sense that everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, once you really start getting some drawbar and you start putting the power to it, like it won't take it. And, we're 158-inch wheelbase, but with all the weight in the front, the back of the truck is, light, so you could go one way and add weight to the rear of the truck and probably help the takeoff and help get through that. But you're going to give up so much in the middle and the end that you're not going to be competitive. So it's a fine line of trying to find that balance of, what it will do or won't do. And, the tire game has been big too. I mean, with what most of our class has been running here lately, the stiffer sidewall stuff has really been helping, because it just won't let that tire wad up and release. It'll let it wrinkle up, and then it'll kind of stay. And that's what you want it to do. You want that thing to lay out there and work, but you just don't want it to, you don't want it to look like a basketball.
And, Erik, I kind of go back to Friday's class as reminding me of, gosh, it had to be probably, I don't remember, 16, 17 when they ran out Wheatland for the first time. You remember that show there where everybody just had issues?
I remember.
you know, and it's like, and you
Come-
haven't seen that since, you know, I mean, like that,
Come to
you know,
find out, I think I was told that there was some mechanical issues with the sleds out there with like the accumulators or something in the hydraulics, that it was pushing the back of the pan down, or it was doing something. I don't know what exactly, but I know it was so bad that we started on the one track with the one sled, and like the first handful just come completely off the ground.
Yep.
Mears stopped the show and said, "You're going to run on the other track with the other sled," and it was better. But by that time, everybody was in panic mode. You know what I mean? Like, what do you do? But you know, same kind of thing, I guess. But it's just, you know, it's tough. I mean, everybody has done it. I've done it. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter how much seat time you have. Like, it can still jump up and bite you, and you got to keep trying different stuff to make it, you know your surroundings and know what it'll take. And that's the toughest part. And, you know, I wish it were easier than that, trust me, but it's not. I mean, I tell everybody all the time that, you know, our trucks are about the easiest things to drive, as far as how they work and how they, you know, they have so much low end, like they'll come out of off the line really nice and really gentle, but they're really hard to be good at it. And there's so much finesse involved, and you know, it doesn't matter, you know, how much money you spend or how much, you know, what parts you buy or whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just seat time. I mean, fortunately, I've had a lot of seat time and kind of know what to expect when I see things. You know, I look at how they set the sled, and I watch how that pan's acting, you know, and you know, if that pan acts like it's going to be really light and it's, you know, sitting there going up and down for, you know, first 25 feet of 50 feet or 75 feet, I know how aggressive I can be with it, you know, and it's just experience. I mean, bottom line.
Now, is there rules as far as, like, you know, shocks and spring setups on those, or is there pretty much wide open, whatever you guys get that, you know, that
You're
works
just not allowed.
on?
You're not allowed to have anything control them
Okay.
off. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't have like same with, like, you know, all the pro stocks and all them guys now are running airbags on the front. You just can't have any lines attached to anything to where it can control that. You know what I mean? But it has
Everything
to be
mechanical.
Yeah, it has to be mechanical preset. So, but I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, and you know, I've learned a lot of that from my brother's racing career and being involved in dirt late model stuff. And I was around that for a while, and I'm no expert in it, but what I picked up from those years really helped me in that way. And, you know, shocks and springs and that type of stuff is very, very, very vital on a four-wheel drive pickup, whether it's a diesel or an alcohol motor. I mean, it's very vital. I mean, you have to get that weight to transfer, but there's a fine line there. If you transfer it too much, you lose your drawbar, or you chatter the front end. And I mean, it's just, and they're all different. I mean, I can't tell anybody what I'm doing and they put it in their stuff and it be the same, because of how my chassis is built, where my weight's at, you know, all that stuff. Like, it's different. So there's no one size fits all for that.
Does the desire that seems to exist in everybody else, in every other competitor's class, of more horsepower, does that desire not seem to be as maybe prevalent in superstock diesel four-wheel drive? Or is that, I mean, are you constantly wanting to go to the dyno each year and find more and find more and find more? Because it seems like if you and Van don't even open it full throttle all the way sometimes, why the heck do you need more? You know, don't worry about it.
Well, it's there if you call upon it. You know what I mean? Like this weekend, like, it needed it. I mean, where I ran it Friday, it was lazy. I mean, and I run that same setup a lot of other places, and it's not lazy there. And so I had to regroup for Saturday, and you got to have it. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not advocating for a max amount of it, because I mean nobody's wanting to wrench on their stuff night in and night out, and that's what's been so great about our classes. I mean, we can run both series kind of all over the country, and aside from normal maintenance and stuff, we're not working on them like we used to. And I'm sitting here like right now, I'm looking at a plaque of my stuff in 06 and the setup on it, and I can remember go pull and come home, rip the head off of it, pull the pan off of it, do all that stuff. But I've not been to the dynos since 2007 or 8, and even when I bought this motor off of Scheid in 2020, it's never been dynoed. It's just been field tested. I mean, and there's a lot more in it, but we just we put it to the.
I think that's awesome.
We put it to the spot that it's going to be reliable all the time, but yet it's still got enough to get the job done. And, that's what's great. Like, well, we're at 7,500 pounds and that size tire, like that's the whole key. Like we want it to be a driver's class. Like we don't want, the whole class to be wide open from the very beginning, you know what I mean? Because then you get back to what we were 15 years ago, and then everybody's wrenching on their stuff all the time, and that just takes all the enjoyment out of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's that overpowering that tire is to me, that's what makes our class great. And that's, we learned so much when we used to run like if Shane and I and Van, like, if we did not go run Ohio State against Steve Barker and the Odells and King Lucas and all those guys, like if we didn't go do that, like our class wouldn't be where it's at today, because we learned to drive pulling against them. Like that was so crucial. And, I'm so thankful that we did that. And now like it's kind of paved the way, and like our class is getting bigger every year. I mean, there's more trucks coming into this. Like we used to struggle to get numbers, and now it's like we're a big, getting pretty big, honestly, across the country.
Sure.
Are you getting any sleep?
Very little. I've not slept since about June the 4th, maybe a couple hours here and there. My mother-in-law was fortunate enough; she got to come in and stay for about a week and a half, and she was here until I got back Sunday, and she helped out a tremendous amount and did let Lily and I get some sleep. And my parents, they live right up the road, so they've been helping, and my sister-in-law and all them too. So it's but now it's just been me and Lily since I got home from Farley on Sunday. So it's
you take advantage of help anytime you can get it. Promise.
That's right.
I promise.
It's quite the change. Plus, I was stupid enough when I was at Farley to, not go to bed.
Sleep. Yeah.
I mean, not like I was up doing anything stupid or nothing, but like, there was so much going on, and the time the show was over and the time change and all that stuff. Like, I think by the time I got to bed Saturday night, it was 2:30 or 3 o'clock their time, and then get up and get on the road to drive 10 hours home. And I tell you, when I come around the bypass around Indianapolis, I was on 74 to Cincinnati. I mean, it was all I could do. I was just ready to be home.
Yeah,
I understand. I felt that same way. I went to bed about 4 o'clock Eastern time, Friday morning, Saturday morning, and Sunday morning, and I was up and rolling at 7. So I get it. But obviously, and Dan, I don't want to cut you off from asking questions either. It seems like I got all of them. But you mentioned on the mic the other night that it was the greatest week of your life, and obviously, part of me thinks that the reason that you were so calm and settled on Saturday night really is because you had just experienced what the three of us have all been able to say is probably one of the greatest, things of our lives. So the win in the 50,000 is a pretty cool deal, and you even said that, but that wasn't the coolest thing you got to experience last week.
100%. I mean, that was the coolest thing in my polling career, but it doesn't hold a candle to what I experienced, the week before and since then. Like it just, I guess I'm a late bloomer, but I'm 43 and it took me that long to experience this, but I think it really let me appreciate it more, maybe, because I'm at the stage now in my life where obviously I kind of got everything in order. So there's like no pressure on that front, but I never knew what to expect and to go through that. And it's been amazing. And I know it'll change my life forever in a better way. And I can't wait to see how this all goes. She's been wonderful for both of us and our whole family. She's the first grandbaby on both sides. So,
okay, there you go.
Oh goodness!
Yeah,
Christmas is going to be awesome in your house.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I know, Erik, I know it's cliche what they say, don't blink, but it's true. I have one that just graduated high school. Dan has one that's out of high school and one that's even older than out of high school, and you blink and they're not babies anymore and they're going away to college. So enjoy every single moment of that little bundle and enjoy your trip with her. It's going to be awesome. But I want to get back to I want to get back
thing.
to for just a
I
minute.
just want to mention, to touch on what you just said. I mean, the 9 months leading up to it went fast, and then in one more day she'll be 2 weeks old. It just I can't. There's no sense of time, none.
I understand. I understand completely. Well, I just kind of you're no stranger to the game. You've been around a long time. You've done a lot of great things in the sport, and the accolades abound, the championships, the event wins. The question I have for you is, now that you are the first $50,000 winner in your class, like, does that take it to the top of the pile? Is that the biggest accomplishment, that you have relished in your pulling career, or does it rank in the top 5? Like, where does this win, rank among all of the things you've done in your career?
It's hard to put a value on it in that sense, because I felt a lot of pressure trying to win my first championship, because I'd been in the class for so long, kind of at the beginning, and I felt a tremendous weight off of my shoulders that first Pro Polling League championship. And I mean, the second one was like, there was no, just proved that last year wasn't a fluke. And then we went and ran Grand National the next year just to see, on a totally different set of tracks and, all that stuff. And then, like that, those were all like stepping stones. I just want to be, at the end of the day, like, respected, with my peers and my my classmate guys and stuff, and like to know that I was a part of it. The day that I'm done, like that, I was in the book for something, and that was always what I worked for. Always been competitive, and and there for a while, we would have some hit and miss stuff. We would win some events and stuff like that. And I've won some sessions at Bowling Green, but I've never won that ring. And that's always drove me crazy. We've won the farm show. We've won the belt buckle. We've won at Wheatland, won the, Henry. Like, we've won some of these crown jewel events. But far as an event, there's nothing that it will ever touch this, I don't think. I mean, it would have to be something really spectacular. I mean, and not just for the value of the 50,000, just the magnitude of what that pull meant for the world of pulling. Like, going forward, I really feel like it's changed how things are looked at. I mean, how are competitors going to feel going forward to the next events, and how are promoters going to feel, and sanctioning bodies and stuff? These are all unknowns. I don't know the answer to it. Like, but I see what these guys are doing in racing. I see what everything was World Outlaws and stuff, and now there's high limit, and like, things are changing very fast. And I wish I hope that this is a starting point, that maybe maybe it'll take off even harder for him from here.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was kind of my question was, as far as like the model, everybody had kind of talked about, maybe 6, 7, 8 of these events a year, but maybe not with the 50,000 to win. What would be like a, 10, 15, 20, what would be an amount that most pullers would be, pretty happy with, running for? I mean, obviously you can't make everyone, 50,000, but what would be would be a good amount?
It's not like that. It's not like that everywhere else in other forms of racing either.
Right.
And there's crown jewel events, and I'm sure that those have different buy-ins, compared to what the purse is and all that stuff. And if there was more, if there was some shows that paid $5,000 to win or 10 grand to win or whatever, like that's so helpful to a lot of people. I mean, at the end of the day, in our sport, nobody's making a living at this. Like, Like it's a professional sport, but we're doing it on our own dime. And, it's tough. I mean, especially when you've got, got a lot of other commitments and things like that. And I feel like everybody that's involved in our sport is very fortunate in life to be able to do this. It's extremely challenging at times. So, yeah, I would be up for any of those things. I think I just signed up for one that's going to be in October that they're running up in Canfield. I think it's 10,000 to win. And I think it was 1,000 entry fee, which, that's fine. The Pullers Championship was 500, and you can see the check right there. It's for 5,000. So, I don't think that's out.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't think that's too much to ask, really. And that's not a point series. So, like you're not expected to be there. You're just signing up to go to that event, and, winner take all.
Is that something, I guess, I've heard mixed emotions about that, or mixed feelings about that scenario, about the pullers being the purse. Essentially you guys created the purse for Farley. There were some people that were not proponents of it. And obviously some of those people that weren't proponents of it weren't there. They weren't present. Some still didn't want to miss, so they went ahead and paid the entry fee, and they were there too. But I guess if you were to look at it and say, okay, the budget for year end in this whole deal is I've got $10,000 or $15,000 invested in entry fees, but at the end of the year, I have the potential to potentially win $160,000. You're comfortable with that?
I would be. But you got to look at it too. Like it's probably needs to be based on the amount of vehicles too. We was a $5,000 buy-in, but we only had 20 vehicles. You know what I mean? Like where everybody else, what was theirs? Was it for
2,500 for
2,500? Okay. So yeah, I don't know how they would want to navigate, but I don't think that it has to be the same for everybody. It needs to be kind of maybe based off of, how many competitors, that there are available to do it, or how many, sign up. After they sign up, I figure they could, maybe take and divvy it out and say, well, this is how much we could have, on this many vehicles. But I don't want to see it stay that way. Like I don't want to pay 5,000 every time we go. That's a lot to throw out there, especially when you do it for, it's set out there out of my bank account for 6 months, just thinking, well, I got to get at least fifth to get it back, and I'm confident that my stuff that, I should probably do that, but you just don't know. You have no idea that you're going to even get that back. But I really think that this year probably was the right thing to do in so many ways, because it's had so much publicity and so much, stuff out there on the Twitter sphere, and the internet. Like,
yeah,
I think some people will, maybe want to jump on board, if they see how much attention this got, and maybe that'll drive down the entry fee price, but keep the keep the purse up there.
See, Erik, you'll blink and then you'll have this.
I can see that.
Yep, buddy.
That's about right.
But now, Erik, as one of the original OGs of this class, you sit back and you look at, all the years of what you guys, running at events, just trying to get people, interested in the class. And you sit back here and, pretty much won everything there is to win in this class. It's got to be pretty satisfying sitting back and going, where you guys have come from to where you are now. And the class is very, very popular with the fans, and the competitors are all tough. I mean, that's got to be, pretty satisfying, I would think, huh?
It is. I mean, that's like what I was saying earlier. That's the most satisfying thing to me, is the fact that, where we started at, I mean, we were pulling for nothing. I mean, literally, we would drive all over and run exhibition passes and, tear our stuff up. And I mean, we weren't even getting paid anything, for a long time. And then finally, there was enough of us kind of got it together to where we could form a class and have a set of rules and get a direction of it, with, cut tires and, all this stuff. And once we got that established, it took some years running region series and that type of stuff. And then our, if you remember right, we got into Bowling Green, I think around 2010 maybe. And we were a region class there. I think we were the only region class maybe. And it was kind of unheard of to have not everything wasn't Grand National.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure that maybe the year before that Atlee went up there and made a test pass or something, or just made an exhibition pass at Bowling Green
throughout the weekend. Yeah, I think there were several.
Yeah, and then that kind of propelled that situation. And then then we got into the farm show, and that was a big deal. And then like once we kind of got there, like it just shot us right into Champions Tour, Grand National, level. Then that kind of I think once we got that established, that it give everybody thinking about getting into the class, like, okay, this is top tier. This is, you can't go any higher than that. Like
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like the top form of racing or something like that. Like, you aren't going to do it unless they're guaranteed that they're going to, be there for the big shows. And that was a big deal for a lot of people.
And as a pulling fan, you guys are so exciting to watch, because it's such a driver's class, and that's what really makes it, really exciting. And I think that, and that's why you guys, I think, are one of the most popular classes. When, you look at, what people go to see, you guys, everybody's always in the seats when you guys are running.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody associates it with, I mean, I know it's not the same thing as what's in your daily driver, but a lot of people have diesel pickups, you know what I mean? And that's been a hot thing for how many years now. And that's what always kind of people related to, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, all that stuff. And now, I mean, like, it's great. I mean, it's great for our class, what Kuslik and Dickey are doing. And now you got some guys with some power stroke stuff, which, back in the day, Ben Miller used to run with us, and he was actually a power stroke, but you need that parity. And that parity, like, it can't all be a Dodge body and a Cummins, for the whole class, because, nobody can relate to just that. A lot of people drive Chevys, a lot of people drive Fords and stuff. When we changed the body on mine, that was the reason I went with a Chevy, is because everything was a Dodge. I didn't change the motor or the motor program in it, but it was just to give the fans something else to cheer for. And, now there's a lot of that. And, sitting in the stands, I don't know that everybody knows what's under the hood, and it doesn't matter to the fan. Like, they're just
not at all
what the team is, and that's good. I mean, you want that rivalry for sure. I think you got to have that to make it go.
Well, and I think the popularity of the sort of the underclasses, the 2.6, the 3.0, the 3.6, that is so wildly popular right now. I think a lot of those folks are enjoying those and then realizing they can step up, and then before you know it, they're feeding into your class, which I think is great. And you don't really see that in other classes, really. I mean, you just don't. There are, pretty well cut and dried as far as like there isn't an economy 2-wheel drive or a smaller level mini rod class unless you're running like a small block Chevrolet in certain regions, which they do. But I think that the success of your class in certain ways can be attributed to the fact that there's such a deep pool of classes underneath you of which that you can build and grow over time.
Well, yeah, I mean, 2X30, they have a lot of places that they can go pull. I mean, they can pull in,
Absolutely.
just their home state. They can go across state line and pull in another series. Indiana's got theirs, Ohio, Kentucky. Every state's got those, and those guys will get into that. They'll be successful, whatever the case may be. Well, then they start like, well, I want to start traveling more. So then they start running, like Silver Series or Region or whatever. And then they're buying and upgrading their haulers and all that stuff. And then they get all this equipment and they're like, well, we're not too far off of going to the Super. And so, you're before you know it, you're already there,
Yep.
And you see what I mean? Like it doesn't take long. And
absolutely.
So I think
it's good for the sport, and I think it's good to, to be able to, step up to those different levels. I enjoy that about your class specifically.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
too.
I'd like to say, I think it is the best feeder system in pulling, really. I mean, when you look at, you don't see, like you said, the modified tractors, you don't see, diesel trucks are just, from all the way up from work stock all the way up to super stock, it's probably, I'd have to say, the most popular,
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's the plan this year? Are you going to run both circuits? Or are you going to kind of just babies here now? So you kind of pick and choose and go wherever you like, or what's the plan for 2025?
We're going to pick and choose. I mean, we obviously we buy our license every year and we want to support both series and do everything we can, but this year it's just not in the cards, and I'm actually looking forward to it in a lot of other ways too, because when we do go out, I don't have any pressure on me, as far as a point series thing, and there's a lot of stuff that we've wanted to try and do some testing with the last couple of years, and we've just never really got too far off of our base because we're always in a battle, for running for a championship, and you got something that works, you don't want to go far off of that because that you're capable of winning that championship. But now, like, if we don't hit all of them, then we'll go to the ones that we can functionally do and try to navigate that with the newborn and stuff, because that's going to be a little different the first time or two out, I'm sure. And trying to go to the bigger events and stuff, and the ones that's not quite as far away from home maybe, but I don't know. It's just on the other hand too, I might wake up tomorrow and my wife might say, well, you need to go here or you need to go there. And I mean, that was kind of how the Farley deal was when they got together. I believe at the banquet, at NTPA banquet, I started getting a bunch of text messages late that night from guys in my class that was there, and like, would you go to Farley if they had us? And I said, I don't know. That's kind of about the same time our babies do and stuff, and kind of played it off thinking that, that ain't going to happen. Baby comes first no matter what. So
sure.
I told her, and she's like, you're going. And I was like, okay. She's like, no, you're going. Like, you have a chance to win that. You are signing up. Like, unless something happens when the time comes, you're signing up. So I listened to her and I did. So
there you go.
You made the right decision. Happy wife, happy life.
That's right.
Yeah. If mama ain't happy, ain't no one happy.
Yeah. We'll probably go hit some Ohio State pools. I mean, we'll be at Fort Recovery. I don't know about, I doubt we're going to go to Tomah. I don't know about Rockwell. We'll definitely be at Bowling Green. we'll be at the extravaganza at the end of August. So just kind of wherever the road takes us. I mean, nothing serious.
Understood. And that makes perfect sense right now with the new little one on board. So enjoy that. Enjoy.
I would say the ones that we do go to will probably be wherever the super diesels are at. Just that way, her family's there and stuff too. That way, they make it a little easier on us. Like
right. Need help.
A little more help and stuff too. So.
For sure.
I see Miles representing the shirt of that tractor right there tonight. There you go. Yeah. I think that was one of the first times she ever pulled that. I don't even know where that was. Yeah.
Very cool. Well,
Erik, thank you. Thank you.
You're a busy guy, and we appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us. And
you could have had this 40 minutes to sleep, and instead you've spent it with us. So thank you.
Right.
That's all right. I'm going to be on late night duty, and then I'll probably go to bed about 5, and then she'll take over. So I've been sleeping more in the morning. So I appreciate you guys having me on and what you guys do. I mean, you're the best in the game. I mean, there's not one event that I want to listen to if you guys aren't calling it, and I really mean that. And so does my wife and all our family and stuff like that. So. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for having me on. Hopefully you have us back on some other time. Hopefully have her on too, even though she'd probably get a little shy. But
no, thank you again. We really appreciate you being on, and go get some sleep. Well, no, you're on night duty, so don't
go to sleep then.
Until tomorrow. We'll see you.
Congratulations again, and snuggle Ellington for us. Tell Lily we said hi.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you all. Yep. Have a good one.
We'll see you. All right, so Erik Stacey joining us here tonight, one of the $50,000 winners, and yeah, that was what a weekend. We talked about it, and the Miles. What was one of your things that you took away from this event this weekend that you're just kind of like, man, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I were reflecting on my highlights or the things that I would think about. Really watching them, I think the competitiveness that existed there was incredible, and I think there was a lot of just. I think there were people there for multiple reasons, but I think at the end of the day, all of us collectively felt like this was a way the sport was going to take another step forward, some kind of advancement or some mechanism whereby when we look at it, we could say this was a milestone,
right?
That led us to the next big milestone. And so for RJ and Brandon, their families, all the folks that were behind the scenes helping, I feel like this was an outside of the box sort of vision that may have initially started with Roger and then was just completely blown out of proportion by RJ and Brandon.
Sure.
And I think at the end of the day, it worked. I don't think there was anything missing. I think from the thorough tech experience that every puller was put through to the incredible competition that we saw on the track and to the raw emotion that we experienced in the win or the loss, it was pretty fantastic.
And one of those where you look in 20 years, were you there, at Farley in 2025, and that's, I think, I look at the lucky dog part of it. We had some great stories, with Nick Headley, almost got one of those big checks for that, for all the work they put in that, that weekend there. And, we visited with them on Saturday afternoon. They were still waiting for a rear end from Michigan.
3 o'clock. They
had parts coming from Western Iowa and it all worked for them. And, and then John Link, coming from the lucky dog and getting one of those big checks and, just the, and RJ and crew for having the idea behind that, and just the, the thinking behind that was, it's something you just didn't see in the sport. And it was just really cool to see how that all played out. And, Peter,
some of the excitement that you would say we saw, like Jamie Janke or Lawrence Line, 83 years old. He was chosen as a lucky dog as well. Those were pretty neat. Peter Norton, he ended up with a big check.
Yes,
and he was a lucky dog. He finished 11th in the preliminary.
Yeah.
And came back and made an absolutely beautiful pass and darn near won the thing. So, I think that was an element of it. The auction for Make-A-Wish that took place impromptu because of a driver who simply said, my tractor probably shouldn't be in here, so auction the spot off. That was pretty cool. I think there were just a lot of really, really big storylines. And the truth of the matter is this had a similar, we count down to farm show, and then we leave farm show and we talk about farm show for a week or two. That's the scenario how this was. We counted down to Farley for several weeks, and then we lead away from Farley. And my guess is we're all going to get to Tomah, and we're all going to still be talking about Farley. Like I said, kudos to all the parties involved. And while there were other polls that were going on around the country, I think the epicenter of the sport was right there in Farley.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the great numbers, people watching on Full Pull Live that weren't able to be there. There was the big MATA poll over, in the Netherlands last weekend, and, all kinds of, like you say, PPL got started last weekend. And, but like you say, just all eyes seem to be focused on Farley this past weekend. And, Mother Nature was able to give us 3 days of beautiful weather, and it was, the last couple of years, Saturdays have been pretty wet there, and we were able to get that. Finally, she was able to give us some nice days, and I think it'll be interesting where we go from here. Really, I think as Erik had said, it'll be interesting. What when folks are planning on doing, and where this will go from here.
Well, and I don't care if I have to go out there and fetch water for you guys next year. I'm going.
Yeah, it's definitely, and that was another thing too, is, how the facility is laid out. The racetrack, for staging, for getting everybody through tech, and, it takes quite a facility to do something like that, so it just can't be any other, random fairgrounds or, so if you have an event of this magnitude with, 250 plus vehicles, that's where you're going to have to, have the facility to do it. So
for sure,
we'll see where it goes and how things go. And well, what do you say, guys? That's pretty much covers Farley and everything that happened this past week. We've got another busy week coming up here this weekend. Here we've got PPLs running this weekend. There's Outlaws got 3 shows this weekend. One in Illinois, which a lot of eyes will be on that as they cross the river. And that'll be interesting. They'll be over in Cambridge, Illinois. And then Ardmore, Tennessee will be Mid-South Pullers. Those will be the 3 Outlaw pulls, and the Ardmore pull will be on Full Pull Live this weekend. So lots of pulling action once again this weekend. If you're not at a pull, make sure you tune in to Full Pull Live. And what you guys got planned for the week ahead?
Well, I will be getting started with the KTPA this weekend in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, for a one-nighter on Saturday night. They've had a couple of sessions so far, but I'll make my debut with them this weekend there in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky on Saturday night, the 21st.
I'll be home this weekend, just kind of trying to honeydew some things around here and get prepped for Tomah. So,
start working on Tomah, yeah. And I was going to ask you, any sheep going on this weekend? No sheep.
Not this weekend. We'll all eyes are on a big show the week of 4th of July. So
all right,
heading to the big All-American show then. So that's kind of the focus right now, and just kind of laying low for the next little bit until we head to Tomah.
All right. Well, that'll conclude episode number 14, guys, and we'll see everybody back here next week. And once again, we thank Erik Stacey for joining us here tonight and spending a little bit of time with us and giving us some of the insight of winning that big $50,000 prize. And we'll move onward here to Tomah, the 50th anniversary coming up next week.
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll see everybody next week.